Welcome to the Why Not podcast with me, Chrissy Hawkins. In a world where everybody always asks why, I'm here to ask, why not? I'll be breaking down the mindsets of guests as well as my own in a bid to find out what makes people say, why not? So guys, today I have an interview with Will Walsh. So Will Walsh is a online fitness coach, and we talk a lot about psychology today and basically why you want a donut, or maybe you don't want a donut, maybe you don't want the donut, maybe there's something else you want and you're filling that with the donut. We talk a lot about donuts in this podcast, and it was really fun and a really good conversation. There is a few parts where the internet had a slight delay, so sometimes when I ask him a question, or sometimes we kind of got caught because there was a delay on his end or my end, but don't worry about that, I've edited most of it out. But as ever, guys, I want you to sit back and relax, or walk and listen. Here's my podcast with Will Walsh. Hi guys, welcome back to Why Not. So today I've got William Walsh on the podcast. William Walsh runs an online fitness business. We're going to call it a business. He's not just an online fitness coach. And today we haven't decided what we're talking about, so we're going to see what happens. So welcome to the podcast, William. How are you?
Hey, Chrissy. I'm pretty good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. So do you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Cool. So I suppose I got into fitness back in my early 20s in a serious way. Once upon a time, I was a big fat guy. I used to weigh 125 kilos at 5'8", so that was sort of no good. That was getting out of breath, walking up a flight of stairs kind of territory. So I guess I decided I'd had enough of that, and I like to kind of really do things. I'm going to bother my arse doing them, So when I was in college drinking beer and eating kebabs, I was really doing that quite hard, and I decided to go the other way then and just do fitness really hard. So that ended up with me getting into CrossFit back in the early days of CrossFit. Nobody knew what the hell that was. And I just trained my ass off of that quite a lot. I lost something like 35 kilos of fat or something. Like I was 77 kilos at my lowest. So you can do the maths on that. And I started competing in CrossFit. I took 6th place in Europe back in 2009. I think I was 13th place in Europe in 2011, something like that kind of territory. Won my weight class in a couple of weightlifting meets, that kind of shit. And along the way, I opened up a gym, decided actually I really love this stuff. I want to teach it to other people. So that was me for about 10 or 12 years. I ran a gym in Sandyford. And then about 18 months ago, I went fully online. I'm kind of doing a lot more one-to-one work these days. I always enjoyed group classes and stuff, but I think the real thing I always loved was working one-to-one with people and kind of really making plans very specifically for them to work towards their goals. And I kind of found you couldn't really do that very much. You get folks like coming up to you and saying, well, my goals are this, 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 and this. And I'm like, well, I have this general group class. We'll kind of hit most of those. So it's like, so I really love now being able to like really focus razor tightly in on exactly what somebody wants and just give them exactly that. So yep, that's what I do now. Online coaching, pretty much I guess it's mostly full-time, but I split the rest of my time renovating my house and looking after 2 small lunatics as well. So it's
the part-time job, but it's the full-time income.
Well, I joke that I spend 50% of my time renovating my house, 50% of my time building my fitness business, and 50% of my time looking after my kids.
This is interesting, maths.
Yeah. It's even more interesting trying to pull it off. But yeah, we do it most of the time.
So what pushed you to move into the online fully?
I'll tell you exactly why, actually. It was because years and years ago, I had some really bad chronic pain that I just could not effing get rid of. And, my knees were really bad. My ankles were bad. My back was bad. My shoulders were all messed up. And I actually hired an online coach myself, a chap called Michael Ban, who was extremely helpful with that. So he was my coach for like 2 years, kind of fully online. And, during that process, a long time ago, I kind of learned how much I didn't know about programming and about exactly, the exact process for recovering from pain and kind of where it comes from in the first place and all that kind of good stuff. And I was really struck by just what a good service that was, because there was no, so you'd look at that, okay, well, I could hire an in-person trainer and it's like, it's whatever, 75 quid an hour or something like that. And you're restricted to one space and one location. I used to joke that I was just going around doing what the little man on my phone told me, that so I experienced firsthand just how useful that was. And I was like, oh, this is actually a much better solution to most people's problems than what I'm providing in the gym. A lot of people, once they get past a certain point, like you don't necessarily need your trainer standing there exactly at 11 o'clock. Of course, when you start now, it's fabulous. If you never trained before, you're not confident in the gym, having somebody else there kind of going through the whole session, which is just absolutely invaluable. But for folks that have a bit more experience, working on a bit more of almost like a consultancy basis, where you're putting a lot of the power in their hands and saying, okay, well, this is what you got to do, but we're going to work on this collaboratively, and you're going to kind of tell me what you're experiencing on the ground, and I'm going to give you some overall shape and some overall structure and oversight to the whole thing. In so many ways, for the right person, it's a much better deal. And, I think for the coach, it can work out so much better as well, because, you can, you're free of the fact that everybody wants to train at exactly 6:30 p.m. and everybody wants to train at exactly 6:30 a.m. I was like, what do you do the rest of the day? Well, sweep the floor, like whatever. Yeah, get one of those foam roller naps in. Do you do those foam roller naps? Those are good naps. Oh yeah. You get a gym mat, you put that down, you lie on your side, you put a foam roller into your head. You can have a good ass nap like that.
Ah, okay.
Like you have 30 minutes between clients or something, and you've only slept for like 4 hours and you're propped up by caffeine. That's
my trick is, because the split shifts, because that's when our clients are around, is I live really close to work, so I go home and I just nap on the couch.
Oh yeah, well that's good. That's pretty damn good. Yeah.
My boyfriend's there trying to work at the like dining room table, and there's me like passed out on the couch,
snoring in one corner of the room. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember the split shift stuff. That was good fun.
Do you miss that?
You kind of enjoy. I mean, I've totally romanticized it now because it's so long since I last did a split shift, I guess.
Be a different story altogether.
Like
you're actually having a foam roller and a nap.
Yeah, but there's something to that kind of survival type scenario, you know what I mean, where you're just like sleeping, you catch 30 minutes here or 30 minutes there. It's like it's very clear what you have to do, there's no existential crisis about that.
That's very true. And have a lot of your clients transitioned to online since you went online, or are they all new people you've gotten?
You know what I have an awful lot of, which is so cool, is clients that I've reconnected with who I haven't seen in like 5 and 10 years, because like they moved to a different country or they moved to a different part of the world or something like that, or their schedule changed and they couldn't do in person anymore. And that's been really, really fun. It's just reconnecting with a lot of folks who haven't haven't seen in so long. They kind of seen it on social media and they say, oh, you're doing something different now, I'd love to do that. And it's like, because it used to piss me off so much in the gym, where you'd have guys who are like, they love what you do, you love training them, it's a great match, but they're like, I've got this new job in Galway and I'm moving over there now. And it's like, oh shit, man, see it.
And how do they find, I suppose with the online coaching, like you do the program all, but it's in a sense up to them to do it a little bit more than if you have 11 o'clock at Saturday morning booked in. How do they find having like that little bit more, I suppose, responsibility?
Well, it's you kind of, I always try to kind of be as flexible as I can with this kind of stuff, right? So with some people, I just like kind of, we look at the end of the week and we see how much they got done and kind of go, okay, well, this clearly worked, or this clearly didn't work and whatnot. There's other folks who, we have conversations and we come around to saying, okay, well, listen, we're going to do this workout at 5 p.m., right? And I'm going to text you at 5:05. And, you either should be doing the workout or you should have a damn good reason why you aren't, one that you would actually be happy to say out loud, right? Like I fell off a ladder and broke my collarbone, therefore I'm not doing my workout. Okay, that's a good reason. Oh, I'm really tired and I want to watch Netflix instead. Well, that's not a very good reason, is it? You know what I mean? Like if you can own your reason, then you're happy to tell it to another person, fair enough. But yeah, so I do actually have some folks who I do check in at like set times for like, and it's just a quick thing. It's like an online message. They say, yeah, heading out now. And I say, awesome, there you go. And people kind of drift in and out, where you have those times in your life where you need a bit of extra help keeping your priorities on target. You know what I mean? It's like people get so kind of lost in the day-to-day grind of like trying to balance families and jobs and careers, and just how fucking tired they are. And, the fact the world is falling apart every second you look around and, that kind of annoying stuff. So it's like, it's, that's one of the things I always try to do as a coach, is try and give people the maximum amount of autonomy that will still get them in the direction they want to go in, right? Because like ultimately you're trying to make yourself obsolete, right? You're trying to get them to the point where it's like they don't need you anymore, they can handle all this stuff, and you're giving them the tools to work on just being more autonomous, kind of thing. Yeah, and but like I say, people go through phases. People have some phases where they're like, actually this and this is a little bit quieter in my life right now, and they kind of operate quite happily. And then they have phases where it's like, what, things are absolutely fucked, so I'm going to put aside 5:30 every day as workout time, and so I'm checking in on those guys at like 5:45 and saying, hey, you there, you ready to go? So yeah, we do a bit of both. Like we have some of that, you got to be there at exactly 11 o'clock, and we have some more of the make this flexible and make this fit into your week wherever it fits into your week. And I think that's the real thing. if you can do as a coach is give people exactly what they need at that particular time and kind of be sensitive to the fact they will need different things at different times, you're doing quite well. Which, hard to do, but that's why it's just all about communication. Like I tell folks all the time, the clients that get the best results
are the ones to keep on communicating.
Yeah. Well, I know it's funny, we're having trouble communicating with Zoom issues right now.
The joys of the internet.
Yeah, the irony fairy passed by at that exact moment. But you know what I mean? Like I always tell people, the ones that get the best results are the ones that communicate more. So the clients that like aren't afraid to send me a message and say, hey, listen, things are fucked right now. And I can say, hey, well, why don't we try this? Or, why don't we give it a break for a day or two? The folks that tell me like, I really actually don't like goblet squats very much. It's like, hey, no problem. We can do something else instead. And we can kind of work around that issue and whatnot. Like I think, and it's always the case, like whether it's in person or online, it's the folks that like never stick their hand up and say, this isn't working, or I don't like this, or, that's not going so well. They're the ones that like, things don't work out as well for. Yeah. And I think as a coach, it's trying to like, just one, making sure people know that, but two, also just making sure that you're available to receive that. You know what I mean? Like you're not standing there glaring at them if they say there's a problem. You're like, you're trying to say, hey, it's okay to talk to me about that. That's I welcome this feedback. Lay it on me.
Do you think people are afraid to tell their coaches a lot that something isn't going right?
I think a lot of the time people are afraid to tell themselves, and the coach is just a proxy with that as well. Because like if you actually have to turn around and say, oh fuck, I'm actually not coping very well with the following 6 things in my life, if you're trying to pretend that you're not, that's that can be kind of an issue. But yeah, obviously, they can, there can be kind of all sorts attached to that. Like people are trying to play the tough guy, or they're feeling a bit of shame about the fact that they can't control some particular aspects of their life. And it's like, and like I tell, one thing I try and tell people a lot is like, look, you can't even control your own brain. Like, forget about it. Like, that's not within your power. And like, if you ever want to prove that, just go find like the domestic wiring regulations for your local area. Take that book out of the library, sit down and read it, and force yourself to be interested in it, right? You can't do that. You can't control exactly what your reaction to something is. You can't just pick, okay, I'm going to be fascinated by this and get lost in this textbook for the next 3 hours. So like, you can't do that. How are you going to tell yourself don't have a donut craving? Stop it. You know what I mean? Like, you do not have that level of control over your own brains. Like, so you can't even control yourself. Therefore, what the hell are you talking about controlling your family and the wider world and everything else that's conspiring to make your fitness plan? Yeah, so it's like, you know what I mean? Like, you're just playing a game of trying to influence outcomes. Like, you can't control this shit. So if something is not going well and it's not within your control, don't fucking blame yourself for it. So it's like,
how do clients react to you saying that?
Some of them, they're like, yeah, you're right. I should really just focus on like influencing what I can influence and like trying to kind of let go of the stuff I can't. Some folks are just super fucking hard on themselves. Like, it's just like, you probably see this all the time. Like, people are really, really hard on themselves about like, I did this and I shouldn't have done that and I should have done the other. It's like, that's a hard habit to let go of sometimes. And, we do what we can.
You were saying there as well about the donut. What do you say if a client says I'm craving a donut?
Oh, okay. Well, I've got a little checklist with this actually. So the first one I'd always go through with them is, okay, so you got a donut craving right now. First thing we want to do is just stop and ask yourself, if somebody put a plate of delicious grilled salmon and asparagus in front of you right now, would you also eat that? And if they say yes, well, that means you're hungry, right? And if you're hungry, we should probably feed you, right? We should probably get you like, some proteins and vegetables and some, starchy carbohydrates and stuff like that. And then if you still want a donut after that, have a donut, because, you'll probably eat a more reasonable portion or stop at one when you're not actually fucking starving. But if you are actually genuinely hungry and you want to solve that problem with donuts, the problem of being genuinely hungry will never be solved with donuts because they make you hungrier. Right? So we kind of want to shore up the donut issue first, or the hunger issue first. And then I take this from Josh Hillis. It's after that, if you're like, no, I wouldn't eat the grilled salmon and the delicious asparagus right now, but I still want the donut. Well, that means you're not actually hungry. You're something else. And you got to go figure out what the something else is. And the something else is probably you're tired, or you're bored, or you're sad, or you're experiencing some other strong emotional state. And the unconscious parts of your brain have processed that information and they have come up with the solution donut and kicked that into the conscious part of your brain. And now you can't get rid of it. It's bouncing around up there. So, in that moment, once you actually get there, there may be fuck all you can actually do other than, either white knuckle it, which, has its own problems, or just go eat a donut and just give yourself a pass to eat the donut. But then you take that as in from life and like, okay, well, how the hell did I get there? And it's like, oh yeah, I'm really tired. Right. Okay, well, you know what? There's actually no amount of donuts that will give me 30 minutes more sleep. So maybe I need to go engineer some way to get 20 or 30 minutes more sleep into my life. And, you know, that's not like an instant issue. It's like, okay, well, maybe I need to go back 6 steps and sort out like 6 other things before I can get to the point where I can have 20 minutes more sleep. And then like in 4 weeks time, that will lead to less donut cravings for me. So, you know, you kind of have to have that attitude, which takes a certain, I don't know, certain level of patience, I suppose, apart from anything else, you know, just recognizing that, look, this is not an instant, you know, food cravings can be really, really powerful for a lot of folks, and something that, you know, go off on a tangent here. I'll tell you, like, I came to relate to this so much more when I had my first kid, and she was like 4 months, 5 months old kind of thing. And I found myself in my fridge at 3 o'clock in the morning with a spoon eating some ice cream with no idea how the hell I got there. Just feeling absolutely terrible and putting another spoon of ice cream in my mouth and going, why the hell am I eating this ice cream? God, I feel so bad. You know, like having
an out of body moment.
Kind of an out of body type experience. You know, it's like wandering around like a zombie. Like, you know, you get like 3-4 months of not sleeping, you get a bit weird, man. Like, you know, so it's like a yeah, well, I tell you, it goes through phases. The first 3 months are really bad, and then you get this weird zone in the 3 to 6 months where you're like, oh yeah, you know, sleep is for pussies. I've been getting by on like 3-4 hours sleep per night, and I'm fine. This is nonsense. Everybody's a complete idiot. You know, this is like, yeah, I can do this. And then you get to like 6-7 months, you're like, no, I'm not well. It's like
at which point in that do you wake up in front of the fridge eating ice cream?
I think that was somewhere around the 5-month mark. That was still somewhere around the point where I was still convinced I was fine. Everybody was just an idiot for thinking you had to sleep for 7 hours a night. But you know what I mean? So like, yeah, there I was, you know, personal trainer, know all this shit. I know how to eat vegetables and like meat and fucking everything else. And like, you know, all of a sudden I'm sitting there eating this ice cream with no idea why the hell I'm eating this ice cream. And it's like, yeah, so really recognizing that, you know, it's like, okay, yeah. I mean, you hear about people talking about food cravings and shit. You're like, yeah, that sounds very hard. But you're like, yeah, there you go. Okay, that's my hand is moving to this thing. You know, I had a client before tell me that. Yeah. Well, I had a client before tell me that. You know, that old thing of like, hey, if you have trouble with eating ice cream and stuff, just get all of it out of your house. Get the chocolate out of your house. Get all that stuff gone. You know, I had someone tell me one time they did that, and they found themselves getting out of bed at 2 o'clock in the morning and driving to the petrol station to buy a bar of chocolate.
That's amazing.
Like, well, this shit is powerful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we can get into this. You know, it's like it's survival shit. You know. You ever try holding your breath for as long as you can, and then something kind of stops you, you know, like sometime before you die, somebody, like, it's like some part of your brain that's kind of not really like, it's like, yeah, we'll let you pretend that you're in charge of breathing. You know what I mean? We'll let you have that experience and think you're in charge. But if you hold your breath for long enough, you know, like your hypothalamus is going to say, fuck this. And those little tendrils are going to reach up to, you know, the motor cortex of your brain and say, no, breathe, motherfucker. It's like, you know, these things are very much committees, but like, yeah, you get these, I think you get this a very similar effect with like somebody learns the survival strategy of like, I need to use sugar to dampen down these strong negative emotions that I'm not processing right now. And it's like, you know, if you won't go get the sugar, I'm going to fucking make you get the sugar.
You will get there.
But yeah, so like I said, okay, long tangent, but like basically like that's kind of how I'd approach food cravings is let's go find out what the actual craving is. You know what I mean? Maybe it's a sleep craving. Maybe it's like an emotional connection craving. Maybe it's a time to yourself craving. Maybe it's like a break from whatever the hell else is going on in your day craving. And, you know, you have just learned the habit of solving that with donuts. And, you know, that's hard to break, but it means you can also learn different habits. You know, you can build in things like, you know, having a little ritual before bed to wind down so you sleep a bit more soundly and your whatever your hormone levels are a little bit like better the next day. So you're lower chance of getting food cravings. You know, you realize that maybe you don't see your friends as often as you could, and you like deliberately try to meet up with a couple of them and go for walks on the weekends and shit. And you know, that little bit of social connection actually makes you, you know, slightly less emotionally unstable and slightly more likely to, you know, choose the asparagus and salmon rather than choose the donut. And all this kind of stuff is just influence. It's like, it's not, you're not trying to sit there and control yourself because you can't control yourself. You can just influence because like yourself is so many different things, right? There's like brains of committees. They're not like, I don't know, I think people just walk around with this idea that like they're a little fucking, you know, do you remember Men in Black, the little alien inside the robot suit? You know, you're not a little guy sitting in the head of a body. You know, like, you're part of the weirdest, yeah, it's part of the weirdest, most complex organism known to, you know, well, I was going to say humans are the weirdest, most complex thing that we ever discovered. You know, it's like the brain and body are like totally interrelated. It's an artificial separation to say they're different to each other. You know, and, I think so many people don't recognize that. They talk about like, you know, I don't know. I just get this general sense that people talk about themselves and their bodies as though they're different things sometimes, and like they're really, really not. Like your brain is distributed throughout your entire body. Like your nervous system is part of your brain, and that extends throughout your entire body. Like you have an entirely separate nervous system in your intestines that basically like does its own thing and communicates with you from time to time. It's like, this is complicated shit. What?
Yeah, it's like, hey, I'm hungry.
Yeah, God. Well, hunger is so weird to begin with, right? Because like you can make somebody hungry. You know what I mean? Like I could sit here and talk to you about your favorite food and describe the sensations and textures that you might feel if you bit into that. And all of a sudden you would feel the physical sensation of hunger afterwards. It's like, it's like, wait. So you can get hunger basically from something that comes from outside of you, from talking to another person. And you can for damn sure get it from like all the advertising you're exposed to every day, where you're having all these fucking images flashed up in front of your head as you scroll through social media. It's like, it's like just kind of scary when you think about how easy it is to manipulate you with that stuff. But anyway, yeah. Okay, so donuts are hard. Well, the summary of the answer is donuts are hard.
But donuts are nice.
They sure are. Yeah. I recommend donuts.
Huh?
I do recommend donuts. I'm not down.
I also recommend donuts, just not all at the time.
In fact, I ate one yesterday. It was great.
So jealous. Haven't had one in a while. I said that it was probably like last week, if I'm honest.
Well, you know what? That could be too long for some people.
That's true. Do people realize when they come to you how much of the psychological element that is involved in coaching? Like, it's not just lift the weight, do the thing. Like you said, you talked about some clients who you can just be like, right, these are your workouts. Other clients need you to go, are you doing your workout now? Are you there like you said you were? Just stuff like that, like, up to like as complex as the donut question, to donut or not to donut.
I would say if I'm doing my job properly, they should be shielded from about 100% of that complexity. They should just be, right, because like they don't fucking care. Well, I mean, maybe they do. They might like have an academic interest in it and they enjoy talking. And I do have some clients actually who do enjoy talking about that kind of stuff. But like a lot of the time with folks, it's like they should come to me and they should tell me, I want the following results. I want this, and this to happen. And my job is go off and design a really seamless way for that to happen and explain to them just enough about the process that they feel confident in it and they feel they know how to do it. But it's like, like if you go to your mechanic or something like that to get your car fixed, like you don't want to lecture on how exactly, spark plugs and carburetors operate. You're just like, I would like you to give me just enough understanding about this so I understand that you know what you're doing, and I pay you for the for this repair, please, and you make it happen. I drive away in my car. And like I'm perfectly happy to talk about that shit all day with people if they want to. But God, so many people are like working 60 hours a week and like looking after young kids or aging parents and trying to take care of themselves so they're at it as well. And it's like if I can make things really, really simple, that's when I know I'm really doing my job very well. It's like so I shouldn't really be spending a lot of time lecturing you about this kind of stuff. I should be helping you find a way to get outside and make time for your 25-minute walk every morning so you get your morning sun exposure, so your circadian rhythm's a little bit better, so that you sleep a little bit more easily and you produce a little bit more melatonin overnight, and then you wake up the next day and you don't crave so much shitty food. And you should just be turning around to me after 4 weeks and saying, hey, you know what, my donut cravings have really kind of lessened since I started working with you. That's awesome. And I should go, cool, this is working. I'm so happy to hear that. And I'm not going to give them the lecture about the melatonin because they don't care. They just care about the fact they don't crave so much shitty food anymore and their waistline is a little bit lower. And that's like, awesome, success.
That's true. But
like I say, like I have some clients who love that shit. You know what I mean? Like I have guys who they're much more on the I don't know what you call it, the technician end of the spectrum. They really love getting into those kind of technical details, and like I'll do that all day. And have folks who they want to hear more podcasts and articles and kind of get more resources about this sort of stuff sent to them, and I do that too. But like I just try to be flexible. I try to meet people where they are and kind of like tell them, here's the next step for you. Like you need to get to here. So let's focus on getting to here. Let's do whatever it takes to do that.
I suppose that goes back to your individualized. Everything's more individualized. It depends person to person. Is that something you enjoy now about the online coaching because it's so like it is so individualized, or when you were doing group classes, did you prefer the kind of wider berth?
You know what? It's like both are great. If I had to pick one, I suppose I probably do prefer online coaching because, I never feel like I'm leaving anybody behind. You know what I mean? Like, particularly in a CrossFit type setting, it's like, you got 15 people in the room. It's like, okay, everybody, we're doing deadlifts. And it's like, well, these 10 people here can deadlift just fine. That guy over there cannot figure out where his lower back muscles are with both hands. This person here doesn't have enough flexibility to pick the bar up off the floor, but they do really, really well with the bar up on 4-inch blocks and something of the sort. And it's like, I often really found this thing in that kind of setting where I would try to individualize things, you know, and say, hey, let's do this. You know, you're going to do a Romanian deadlift, you're going to deadlift up to 4-inch blocks. And the effect of that was often people ended up feeling like they were the special kid with the D hat over in the corner of the room kind of thing. You know, it's like this, you'd see folks get visibly upset if you gave them like a different variation of the deadlift and they weren't like everybody else in the class. And, you know, it's like as much as you try to say, hey, listen, you're not supposed to be like everybody else. Like you're supposed to be like a completely autonomous individual person who's had your own journey through life and your own body segment lengths and your own injury history and your own everything else. Like it's actually completely fine that you're not supposed to be a little robot carbon copy of like some sort of idealized human. Like that would be weird. Like that's not. But yeah, so the I've lost your question. Which one did I prefer, or which one did I?
More individualized or group coaching.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, I really love being able to like just stand over what the hell I'm doing 100%, right? So it's like, you know, if the workout is deadlifts and, you know, everything from like the programming aspect really bothered me as well. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, well, you know, we have this group program and like this day is this, this day is this, this day is this, and this day is this. It's like, well, you are training 6 days per week. You're training 2 days per week. You're training 1.5 days per week. And sometimes it's different days. So like if I looked at your programming over like 14 weeks, it's like, well, you have squatted 6 times and you've deadlifted 6 times and you have deadlifted 0 times because you've happened to miss every Tuesday. And, you know, you've done this and this and that. Like, I can never get my head around that. It's like, I don't know how people do that. Like, it's just, I don't know any way that actually
I would wreck my head.
Yeah, well, it's impossible. Like, it's an unsolvable problem. Like, you know, if you actually did want to, and, you know, so it's a compromise. You know, you have like 200 people and you're trying to shoot a line down the middle and say, here's a program that's pretty darn good on average for the average, you know, kind of avatar of these 200 folks. And it's like, it's quite good. Yeah, but like quite good pisses me off. You know what I mean? It's like I want to be like I want to be like the best thing I can do for you right now. Yeah. So I much prefer being able to do that.
Yeah, no, I get you. I suppose we get that with classes as well, but I think CrossFit probably in particular must be really hard, like because like that, like you've got so many variables and it's quite well, I don't know, I haven't done CrossFit, but from what I've seen, it's kind of very go, go, go. So it can be very hard to get people into it, like, you know, saying beginners, like, geez, you're kind of thrown in the deep end if you try CrossFit, aren't you?
Yeah, you know, like you got to ask what the hell is CrossFit though, because like there are so many, like you could walk into 200 different CrossFit gyms and you could see 200 different things happening. So it's like, I don't even really feel comfortable commenting on like what kind of, what would happen to somebody from doing CrossFit, because like I got to sit down and ask you, what exactly do you mean by CrossFit before we go anywhere there. And of course, if you ever watch anybody trying to answer that question, it's impossible. Like nobody can do it. Do you ever hear that judgment that some judge in the United States made about what is pornography? So, well, I can't define it, but I know it when I see it. And that seems to be as close anybody can get to CrossFit as well.
Okay. That's interesting, actually. I never really think about it. I'm like, what is CrossFit? I don't know.
Well, yeah, and people say, okay, it's constantly varied functional movements executed at high intensity. It's like, well, how constantly? I did a thruster last year, so this isn't constantly varied, you know, because like it's like, no, I don't mean you don't do it. Well, how constantly? Come on, pin it down exactly. It's like, and it's impossible, can't be done. People have tried for like 10 years, and that's it.
Do you still do CrossFit yourself?
Well, I do pull-ups and I occasionally do Olympic lifting, and I do slow lifts and I do deadlifting and I do presses. I occasionally do metabolic conditioning, and you know, I do. So am I doing CrossFit? I don't know. Maybe. I have some gymnastics rings I mess around on from time to time. Is that CrossFit? I haven't done Fran in a very, very long time. So maybe that means I don't do CrossFit. It's like, I think you'd have to answer no, just at a spiritual level. Like that,
Spiritual
but I don't really have an objective reason for why that is. Yeah, like in my soul, I don't really feel like I do CrossFit. No. But again, I don't know what the hell that means. So
I don't know. I feel like it's something that CrossFit people will understand. I'm not a CrossFit person, so.
Yeah. I'm just gonna go with no for simplicity.
Yeah. All the CrossFit people listen to this now going, he's not a CrossFitter anymore. He'd know if he was.
It's like being in love, man. You just know.
Brilliant. Right. So what do you find any common misconceptions with clients when they're coming in and joining you first?
Oh God, millions. Yeah. Like Like, I don't know, what do you want to start with? Most common or?
Yeah, most common.
God, well, I would have to say the most common thing that most people have a real misconception about is how the hell you get fat. That seems to be like a real point of, so people think it seems to be about this thing called bad foods. So it's, it's about this moral failing of theirs for eating bad foods. And that's the whole reason that they got into this situation. And, people kind of do lip service like, oh yeah, I know it's about calories. And it's like, but you actually dig into it a little bit and you start listening to, well, what do you think went wrong last week? It's like, well, I ate that donut. I was like, uh-huh. And I was like, okay, well, how many calories do you think were in that donut? Loads. Like, that's why I didn't lose any weight last week, because I ate that donut. It's like, actually, it's probably like an ongoing steady pattern of just slightly too much calories at like every single meal throughout the course of the last like 8 weeks. It's probably not like that individual donut or that one night you had pints or something like that. And it's like, I think people always think it's about these little isolated incidents where it's like, I ate that pizza or I ate that donut or, I had those 2 pints of beer. And it's like, would you say like at the bottom of that, maybe the biggest misconception is about the power of like little ongoing things in both directions? Maybe they don't understand the negatives of little ongoing, slightly too much oil when you fry your vegetables. And, they also don't understand the effects of like the ongoing getting 2,000 more steps per day and what that does to you over the course of a year and over the course of a lifespan and whatnot. Maybe that's the biggest misconception, is people just not understanding that it's, it's like little tiny things repeated endlessly that either make things better or make things worse. And that either way, it's not about big grand interventions. You don't get fucked up by not exercising for 1 week or by eating one birthday cake. And, you don't get abs and get into amazing health by doing 1 6-week program once or something like that. It's I didn't realize
that. Coaches will sell you the 6 weeks and tell you you're going to get abs in 6 weeks.
Well, and maybe a percentage of people will, you know what I mean? Like if you were like 2 kilos away from having abs, you'd probably get them on the course of that 6-week program. Yeah. And if I sell 1,000 copies of that program and, 10% of people were only 6 weeks away from abs, I can, whatever, that's 100 people I can plaster up and say, look at all these 100 people that got abs in 6 weeks. So, I mean, maybe they're not exactly lying, but like it's, the question is who is going to get abs in 6 weeks? Some people will. That's
just not everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, right. That's another big misconception people have as well. Like I think another thing people have is like speed of change, right? You probably find this all the time. It's like, okay, well, I've got these 40 pounds to lose and I have this holiday coming up next month. So, we just get that done. It's like, yeah, sure. I can chop off both your legs. You'll be 40 pounds later, like next week. No problem. And it's like, like you bump up on all these biological limits. Like, so, the way I do the maths with this with people all the time. So like we know from like studies that were done back in the or as early as the 90s that like a kilogram of fat can release like 50 calories per day, right? That's it. Okay. So if you got 1 kilo of body fat, that kilo of body fat can release energy at a rate of 50 calories per day. Boom. Not a damn thing you can do about that. That's just biological limit, like the way it takes a broken bone like 6 weeks to heal, or takes a baby 9 months to be born. All like you can yell about it and scream about it, but that's just what's going to happen, right? That's how these particular cells work. So, if you have 10 kilos of body fat available to lose, each one of them to release 50 calories per day, that means the biggest calorie deficit you can be in is 500 calories per day, which means that the maximum rate at which you can lose fat is 1 pound per week, because, we know 3,500 calories, 500 times 7, that's what it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So it literally doesn't matter what the fuck you do. You can put yourself in like an 1,800 calorie per day deficit if you want, but only 500 of those calories can be met by your fat stores. And the rest is going to be met by like slowing down your metabolic rate and moving less and like cannibalizing muscle mass in extreme cases and all that kind of shit. So like no matter how much you stamp your feet, that is the maximum rate of fat loss that is available to you. And the sooner you accept that, the better off you're going to be. It's like, like we can make it. And like everybody has that time in their head where they did something and they lost 10 pounds. And that's what they're comparing to. It's like, well, I was 19 years old and I spent like 2 weeks on holidays drinking beer nonstop and eating kebabs, and I came back and I was like 10 pounds heavier. So like I did the juice cleanse for 3 days and I was 10 pounds lighter, right? So that becomes their baseline. It's like, I had that one time where I was super bloated and super heavy for some reason, and I did something extreme and my scales went down really quickly. So now I have that makes such an impact that's their normal now. It's like, okay, well, that's the rate I should be losing fat at, because that one time I lost 10 pounds in 3 days. So it's like that is now what I expect forever. And if you can't make it happen, you're a shitty trainer. What's the matter with you?
Yeah. It doesn't help though. You have lots of ads up there going, we can make that happen.
Yeah, well, like, I don't know. Like I say, like, I think so many people do that. Exactly what we talked about earlier. You take like, you sell 10,000 programs and you take like the top 1% or the top 0.5% of the people who get like the absolute best results out of that. And then you put those up in the ads and you put a bunch of money behind the ads and off you go. And like, you could even do the mental gymnastics to convince yourself that that's right. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, this is possible. This is what my program did. And it's like, so even without being a complete fucking liar, which there are plenty of, you know, you could still get there and you could say, well, that's 100 people got this result. Like, this is a true result. You know, what are you talking about? You know, like, you know, there's some dishonesty to that, but I can see how you could get there. You know, so I think there are some people in that kind of camp. But yeah, so much of the fitness industry is just absolute fucking lying bastards.
Do you know the other thing as well is you'll see those programs and they'll be like, here's our 100 people who got these results. I want to see those 100 people 6 months later.
Yeah, right.
They never show you that, did they?
Yeah. No, that's not so much. Yeah. I can't remember, did you follow that stuff? There's been long-term follow-up studies on all the folks in The Biggest Loser. And I think
I've heard of it.
Did this cross your radar?
Yeah. Yeah, I did.
I don't remember the numbers, but yeah, there are some small percentage. There was like, I don't know. It was like 5 or 10% of the people on there still maintained like some percentage of their weight loss, which, you know, was amazing. But yeah, like you say, like I think so many of them were just straight back up or higher again afterwards after you know, whatever her name was yelling at them to run up and down the hills for.
Oh, Gillian Michaels.
Was that her name? Yeah. Yeah, I try not to let too much of that stuff in.
I watched a lot of that when I was younger. I suppose I was probably the right demographic at that point. I was never like Biggest Loser size or big in general, but I was, you know, I was mostly out when I was in my late teens, early 20s. So I was there going, yeah, this is great motivation on the gym.
That kind of, and was that like part of what kind of set your like, oh yeah, this is cool, this is what a trainer is like?
Possibly, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, we yell at them, we're scary. I didn't become a trainer till I was 25. So at that point I'd kind of forgotten about The Biggest Loser. So
you didn't find yourself getting in people's face and screaming at them while they were lying on the floor mid burpee and
no, funnily enough, I didn't. Did you do that?
I'm not going to say I never did that, because there's time and a place for that. You know what I mean? Like we ran a lot of competitions and things like that in our place over the years, and you get guys who are like trying to really push on and trying to. I talk about going out and slaying the dragon. You know what I mean by that? It's like you get these guys who are just on these absolute fucking vision quests. It's like, you know, I'm tracking every calorie and I'm working out twice a day. And it's like, you know, I approach these barbells like frothing at the mouth and with this kind of like, you know, fucking intense look in my eyes. It's like, you know, that guy would appreciate you getting up in his face and screaming, get back up when it looks like he's stopping to take a breath and a burpee. And like everybody else would just think you're an asshole. That's like, which I don't know. Like I say, I'm never going to say like you should never yell at somebody and tell them to get the hell up and do another burpee, because sometimes that's the appropriate thing to hear. But you know, not always, not often.
Yeah. I can't say I've yelled at people specifically, but I've yelled at a group, if that makes sense. But like when you're on a spin bike, it kind of happens.
Oh, you have to. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Actually, I think, you know, you're talking about The Biggest Loser, the original winner of The Biggest Loser is easily back to size he was originally.
Oh man, poor dude.
Yeah. I think it comes to, they're not learning anything really when they do that. They're put in an environment where they're not eating, they're exercising, and then when they let it into the real world, they don't have that. They don't have someone screaming in their face every time they go up.
God, I think like particularly like obesity is just so fucking hard, like as a problem to solve, because it's like so much of it is so decided long before you really get there as a grown-up. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you've seen that research about how much people's food preferences are influenced, not just genetically, right? So obviously, like, you know, you can genetically inherit particular food preferences, but also your exposure in utero, right? So what your mother ate while you're pregnant actually shapes a huge amount of what you find palatable when you're a child, right? So like if mom eats a lot of asparagus, you'll find asparagus perfectly, you know, natural to eat when you're a kid, because you've been exposed to that, you know, via the placenta the whole time you're developing. And likewise, you know, if you get exposed to like nothing but like cakes the entire time, you're going to come out with much stronger preferences for that. And then like if children are breastfed, then like whatever the mother is eating has been passed to the kid via the breast milk as well. So that starts influencing tastes and taste preferences and all that kind of deal too. And then you got like early childhood environment. You know, if you're sitting at the table and you see mom and dad eating a lot of vegetables and lean meats and whatnot, that's, you know, what gets set in your brain as normal, and you'll tend to do that as well. And, you know, likewise, if you don't see a vegetable until you're like 25 years old, like you're going to come out with like a much stronger reversion to that stuff, because we have to learn to enjoy those tastes, right? It's not something you come out like ready to go with. Like mammals all come out with a preference for sweetness because milk is sweet, so we come out, you know, programmed to seek that anyway, and to, you know, to find that palatable. But, you know, you have to learn to like things like vegetables and olives and other bitter tasting things like that, because that doesn't intuitively strike a person as food, right? It's like, ugh. It's like, oh no, wait a minute, that's actually kind of nice. You know, you have to, there's a bit of pushing through that has to happen to that. So, you know, you get all that. You get like the socioeconomic determinants where you get people growing up in like these nutrient deserts for, you know, it's just like, it's not economically viable for their parents to provide them with vegetables and fruit and stuff like that. And they, you know, like you have to own a car to actually get to the nearest place that sells vegetables, where there's 14 McDonald's right outside your door. And, you know, so you grow up through all that, and then you get to 18 years old and you've got diabetes and you've got all these habits that, you know, we're talking about like how hard it is to break ingrained habits earlier on. And then somebody turns around to you when you're like 18 or 20 and say, hey, it's your fault, you're fat. Well, maybe it's not quite right.
Partially, but maybe not all of it.
So it's like, I mean, I get that it's, yeah, well, you know, so it's, you know, going back to the whole idea of like, you're not in charge of your brain, right? And like people treat obesity like this real moral issue, but it's like, you know, there are weight loss drugs now that are very effective at suppressing people's appetite, which are actually showing a lot of good effect in reducing the rates of obesity in people who take them, right? So if this is some sort of moral failing, why the hell can you cure a moral failing with a drug? Doesn't make much sense. Like what the
Very good point.
You know, so what, you know, you talk to me about this one. I don't think you really thought this position through very much, you know, so everybody kind of, you know, so like I say, like, you know, you take this guy in, you do them all, even, I'd say even if you did bring those folks in and you did give them the most fabulous nutrition education possible and set them up with all these amazing habits and whatnot, like so much of the problem is just throwing them back into like a modern food environment, right? Where they're like, you know, you're scrolling through social media and like there's a fucking supercomputer pointed at your brain that has no other goal other than to spend billions of dollars manipulating you to do what it wants you to fucking do and to give you little nudges towards buying the products that it wants you to buy. And, you know, meanwhile, you're working 2 jobs and you're trying to like, you know, make your way through the world and whatnot. And then you get a donut craving. Everybody's like, fuck you for giving into your donut craving. Yeah, it's like, this shit's a lot more complicated. You know, I get it's your responsibility, but I'm not sure that's your fault. You know what I mean? That's like,
yeah, no, that's absolutely true. I liked as well what you said about the people not thinking about how little things can make a difference over time. Like obviously like you're saying, like going for a little walk, or because they're like, oh, that's not really enough, or but it compounds over time, just like the bad habits compound. And I don't know.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, I mean, I use that analogy a lot with people. So like, you know, you say, oh, there's no point in going for a 10-minute walk. It's like, yeah, there isn't. And there's no point paying 20 euros into a pension fund once either. But you know what, you do that every day, and in 40 years, with a little bit of compound interest and a little bit of patience, that's a pretty big fucking pot, you know? But, and similarly, like, you know, okay, the 10-minute walk, yeah, okay, yeah, 10-minute walk's not going to solve all your problems, is it? But, you know, what about a 10-minute walk every day? And what about turning that into a 12-minute walk after you've established the habits and you kind of bump that up a little bit? And then maybe it turns into like 2 walks later on. And, you know, that's the process. But, you know, like I always talk to people about that, if, you know, how everything affects everything, right? So your nutrition affects your appetite, and that, or sorry, your nutrition or your exercise affects your appetite, which affects your nutrition, right? And then, you know, your food environment and your exercise affects how well you sleep and how restfully you sleep and all the rest of it. And that can affect how well you plan your day and manage your time, because like you're more mentally awake and alert and productive and whatnot. So now the fact you've done all that means that you can actually make another 5 minutes in your day to exercise a little bit more. And then exercising a little bit more, you know, means that you actually like feel like eating more protein and more vegetables and more whole grain carbohydrates. And that gets you to the point where you don't find yourself being alcohol late at night anymore. So now you're sleeping a little bit more soundly because you don't have that like fucking up your ability to go to sleep and stay to sleep and whatnot. And then that means, you know, you're not hungover anymore, which means you're even more awake and alert and like enjoying your life more, and you're more likely to go outside and do outdoor activities with your friends and whatnot, which increasingly, you know, you can just see how people kind of go round and round and round with these things. So like, yeah, virtuous cycles very much exist, and there are very real things. So like when you get things actually moving in a positive direction, it's actually not so hard to make them spiral and make that positive direction kind of, you know, go on and keep going. And unfortunately, the opposite is true as well, right? If things get a little bit shitty, the tendency is for them to keep, you know, to all affect each other the opposite way and make them much more shitty. So yeah, I think it's so hard, when things are really shit, it's very, people almost get insulted when you turn around and say that the solution can be small, right? Because it's like do you ever hear proportionality bias? It's like that little mental bug that people have where it's like, if something really big is happening, it must have a really big cause. So like if, I don't know, if a volcano erupts and destroys your village, it can't be because of rocks rubbing against each other under the ground, right? That must be because you angered the gods. That's our instinct. It's like, that's, big event happens, must have a big cause. So it's like, I have this huge problem in my life. It must need this huge solution. It just, that feels right. It's like I feel shit all the time. My clothes don't fit me. I feel fucking terrible. My back hurts. It feels like the solution to that must be, overhaul my entire life, shave my head, move to a monastery, like lift weights 47 times a day. That seems proportionally correct because I'm in this much pain. So it must require this much solution. But it's just, you got to recognize that like we have a lot of these like cognitive biases that just aren't fucking right. You know what I mean? Like there's not everything is exactly what it, I don't know, like our brains didn't evolve for this, right? Our brains didn't evolve for solving obesity and joint pain. They evolved for like, finding fruit and avoiding tigers and shit like that. So our instincts are very good for doing that, but they're not we don't have good instincts for solving things that had nothing to do with our evolutionary background. So it's like, we have to kind of, we can't rely on our instincts for that. We have to kind of think through it with all this, this logical bullshit that we developed a little while ago when somebody figured out all this walking on our hind legs and making tools and whatnot.
Do you get a lot of pushback when you say, look, these little things will make a difference? The clients go, no, it's going to be different for me. It has to be different.
You know what? And like I 100% credit to Precision Nutrition for this line. Show me. You know what I mean? Like, so it's okay, yeah, great. So this isn't going to work for you, right? Going out for a 10-minute walk every day isn't going to work for you. Eating 2 more portions of vegetables isn't going to work for you. Sleeping for 20 more minutes per night and lifting weights twice per week isn't going to work. Okay, cool. So I'll tell you what, we'll do it for 4 weeks. Show me it doesn't work. Just, we'll just demonstrate to me over the course of these 4. And let's figure out our criteria for success here. You know what I mean? We'll measure it with something. So maybe we'll agree that we'll use a combination of your waist circumference, your body weight, and how you feel you look on your monthly photograph or something like that. And we'll do all these things. We'll track how you do with it. And if after 4 weeks this shit isn't working, we'll do more. We'll step it up. We'll do the thing you think. So you can often get people on board with that. It's like let's just try it out. You know what I mean? Because this has worked for a lot of people before, and I kind of feel like you probably have the same basic physiology as most other human beings. So there's a good chance it's going to work for you too. So let's just check it and see. We're not going to sit around. I'm not going to just into this as curious observers. You know what I mean? Like I'm not going to tell you it's going to work. We're going to do a little experiment and we're going to see, and we'll get there. And like, so you can get people over that initial hurdle. That's once they actually see it starts to work, they're like, oh yeah, cool, okay, good, yeah, that's fine, we'll do that. And you can argue the case with people occasionally, but a lot of folks are definitely resistant to that, and I'm not going to say like I have 100% success rate with it, but like sometimes you can kind of you can compromise. It's like, well, I want to do this, and I want to do this. It's like, all right, well, let's do some of that. Like we'll kind of take that idea, because like I always want to use somebody's own plan if it is even halfway usable, because if we sit down and discuss something and you have an idea for how you want to solve the problem, I want to use as much of that as I fucking can, because if it feels like your plan and your program, you're going to have a much higher chance of actually doing it and wanting to stick to it, because like we don't like being told what to do. Nobody likes being told do exactly this and this. Like I said earlier, you can't even tell yourself what to do. We will rebel against ourselves, telling ourselves what to do. So you're for damn sure going to rebel against some other asshole telling you what to do. So, as long as somebody's plan isn't like utterly going to kill you next week, I'll always try and use some of it. You know what I mean? So like I want to do intermittent fasting where I don't eat for like, 23.5 hours per day, and I do nothing but salt bag intervals for like 16 hours straight. It's like, I'm not going to do that. It's like maybe we do half an hour and like,
Yeah, that's fair. That's good.
Like but I'd always first ask somebody what they'd like to do. Like, what do you like doing most? So it's like, okay, well, listen, some way, shape, or form, we have to get you to do some kind of cardiovascular work, and we have to get you to do some sort of resistance training, and we have to do something that reduces your calories. So what have you done before? What do you like? What do you enjoy? And we'll have a conversation like that. And they'll tell me they really love front squats. And I say, fucking awesome. Your program is going to be built around front squats. Let's do loads of that. It's like, so I'll take that and I'll put some kind of shape on it. And I'll say, well, you know what? I know in the past you've done like front squats up to 5 RM, 5 sets of 5 at the heaviest weight possible with 10 minutes rest in between. You keep getting this recurring knee problem when you do that. So it's like, okay, well, we'll still front squat 2 or 3 times a week if you like, but how about we do like, I don't know, one top end set, and then we'll back off to like 85% of that for like some back off work afterwards, or we'll do like, totally RPE based program where we'll go heavier on days we feel good, lighter on days we feel bad and whatnot. It's like, that's, I think the real, if you can kind of take somebody's own plan and just mold it into something that isn't going to, because like you can see 4 or 5 like little things that are going to go hard and wrong in 4 weeks if you do this plan exactly like you want to do it. So it's like, I'm gonna take as much of yours as you can, but just like put a little shape on it and just like, say, how about we do it like this? And it's like, oh yeah, that sounds good. Cool. That's it. So it's nice you can do that.
Yeah, that's good actually. Yeah. It's kind of interesting, as we spoke earlier about how things need to be individualized, but then on the flip side, physiologically we're basically all the same. So on the one hand, like if you're more kind of adapting, I suppose, almost like different injuries and stuff like that are all different, but I suppose the foundations are the same.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, everything's the same and everything's different, isn't it? Like everybody's just protons, neutrons, and electrons, right? So therefore, shut up, we're all the same. But like when you get right down to it, though, you can find a lot of differences too. So it's, and totally at the broad strokes, like, look, everybody's probably going to bend their knees in some way. Everybody's probably going to hinge at the hips in some way. Everybody's probably going to push things and pull things. So at one level of analysis, programs are all the same. There's no difference between any program and any other program. It's all, you're going to move. You're going to move your knees, you're going to move your hips, you're going to move your arms, you're going to move you're going to attempt to not move your midsection, perhaps, something like that. But like the you get, I think a lot of the time, like the individualization is like the last piece of icing on the cake. You know what I mean? It's like, if you didn't, like, so many people, particularly in your first like 6 or 7 weeks, like if you follow like a completely generic template, it's going to work. Particularly depending on what someone's goal is. Like if someone's goal is just like lose some fat, have a bit more energy kind of deal, like anything where they move and they consume somewhat less calories is going to achieve that, right? So, but the exact flavor of how you'll best achieve that and how you'll best adhere to that in the long term, and that's where it gets, maybe adherence is perhaps the heart, now that I say it, where individualization becomes most important. Like you're much more likely to, I don't know, like you put planks in my program, I'm not going to want to do it every day, but somebody else is going to run to the gym and love doing that. You put like handstands and snatches into a program, I'm probably going to want to do it a lot more. So I suppose in summary, do you need individualization in the program? Well, no, but I mean, you don't need much, right? Like you only need like shelter and food and water and shit. I think other things are nice.
It's true. It's probably why you're renovating your house and not leaving it the way it is.
Yeah, well, oh man, like that shelter stuff is good. You know what I mean? Like we had a lot of holes in the wall here when we got in first. That's
not to be said for no drafts or rain coming in when you're trying to relax.
I'm not going to say like I have anything like no drafts, but like the fact that I can't stick my arm through holes in the wall anymore is good. It's
ideal. It's a good start. So I think actually that covers pretty much everything that I wanted to talk to you about. This went into a really cool, like, kind of psychological end of things, which was really interesting. But I do have one other question that I ask everybody, and that is, what is the best advice that you've ever gotten?
God, the best advice I've ever gotten. I kind of feel like I want to pick like a topic for that rather than, because I've received a lot of good advice over the course of my life. You know what, I'm going to give this one to my dad, actually. My dad told me when I was really young, if you really want to do something, you will find any way possible to do it. And if you don't want to do something, you'll find any fucking reason not to do it. So that's it. I think that's something that's, there's something to that.
Definitely.
So yeah, I believe that one, I think.
Yeah, no, I like that one. It's very, very true.
Yeah, so like if you find yourself really not doing something for some reason, it's worth figuring out if you really don't want it, and you might not at some level. And that's okay, because a lot of time I think people end up kind of pursuing things that maybe aren't like 100% in line with really what they value and really what they want, and or there can be something about the thing perhaps that they don't want that's blocking kind of getting to wherever the hell it is. So yeah, really digging into like exactly if you find yourself not doing something that you think you really want to do, there's maybe, you might be wrong. If you really dig in, there might be something about it that you really just don't want, or you really don't like. And you might be telling yourself something about that. Or there might be some part of that you need to get rid of or work around or something of the sort. But yeah, that's often worth troubleshooting things that are not going right like that, I think.
And it's not a failure if you don't actually want to do it. It just means it's not for you.
Oh, Jesus, no. Like sometimes you got the wrong goal, 100%. That was the 1 Minute Manager said that. Like if your behavior doesn't match your goals, either change your behavior or change your goal. And both of those are fine. So like you see that in fitness all the fucking time. Because what does everybody want? They want a six pack. It's like, okay, cool. But here's what you got to do to get a six pack. It's like, okay, well, it turns out I actually don't like never drinking alcohol or never having dessert and tracking every calorie I ever fucking eat and doing an hour of cardio every day and always saying no in case somebody asks me out because like I have to, be at bed at 9 o'clock to make sure I get my 8.5 hours sleep every night. So
Generally like, being miserable.
Yeah, and being fucking cold all the time and not being able to recover from exercise. Like I think a lot of people have had the experience. You get the abs and you're like, oh, these are shit. It's like, like nobody can tell I have them unless I take my shirt off, and I feel like crap all the time. So it's like, fuck that. But oftentimes you pursue a goal and you're like, oh, this goal isn't what I thought it was. So like it is 100% to change your goal if you dig in there and you discover that it isn't what it was cracked up to be. But that's good advice too, like change the behavior or change the goal, and both of them are totally fine to do once you get more information about what the hell is happening.
Yeah, well, that's both really, really good piece of advice, I think. Before you go, can you tell everybody where they can find you?
Oh, I suppose I'm on Facebook. That's the easiest place to find me. I have a website, willwalsh.com as well, if folks want to get on there and look at rambling articles I've written on the past and things of that sort. I'm on Instagram too, william.walsh. I have a TikTok account as well because I'm a complete asshole.
TikTok's class. Don't diss TikTok.
I know, but it's fashionable if you're over the age of 35 to hate on TikTok.
That's true.
So I'm tending to fashion here as well. I'm kidding, of course. I actually quite like it. Like it's weird. Like these kind of communities, I think, are so strange that they kind of spring up spontaneously around it. I think, like, TikTok in one way, like, is one of these really super supportive places for, like, I've got on there with no connection to anybody, and like I've got a lot of people on there like, oh, these are fucking amazing videos. Thank you so much for posting this. This is great. Total strangers as well. And then you get like the occasional guys just like, you're fat. It's like, well, who asked you for a start? Like,
yeah, I've gotten that. Yeah, I do it mostly on my question page.
Those guys, actually.
So
I think it's.
I want.
Oh yeah, and do you get a lot of that? Do you get like people just randomly making fucking negative ass comments about, oh, I don't like you, or you're stupid, or this is no good, or?
Yeah, I get I'll put up stuff and I'll get like that. I'll people going, oh my god, that's so helpful, thank you, that really helped me. And then I'll get the next person going, you're not doing that right, it should be like this.
You find 100% of those people are like accounts with like no videos, no profile photo, nothing like that.
Do you know what it is, right, with the equestrian community, which this is, I think, almost worse. There are people with horses in their pictures.
Oh really?
Yeah,
and they're just, but it's not a picture of them.
Oh, it's them on the horse, or you're probably generally the horse. Yes, probably not them, but it's a lot of their. Yeah. That community can be very cutthroat. Let's just say it that way.
Man, it's like I'm really, really fascinated by the sort of people that go around leaving like shitty negative comments on people's social media content. I'm like, why are you doing that? Who's this? Like, it makes you look like an asshole, so it's making you look worse. It's not doing anything helpful for that person. Like, everybody who reads that thinks you're a dickhead. It's like, and it's like, I think it's something to do with like they can't stand somebody not being insecure about the thing they're most insecure about. Like, I think I think it's with fitness. I think it's so many people are just like, they're scrolling all day and they're just looking at all these people with all these fucking abs and all this perfect lighting, and it makes them feel shit about their own bodies. So it's like, if they see somebody standing up and making a video and like not being self-conscious about their body, that fucking infuriates them. It's like, how dare you not feel as bad as I feel about the way I look? So, you're fat, fuck you. It's like, is there?
Oh, that's it. Like, absolutely.
That's my working theory right now, but it's like
I agree with it, absolutely. With that as well, I'm going to tell you guys can find me on TikTok at Chrissy H Fitness, but I'm also on Instagram. It's also Chrissy H Fitness. Website www.chrissyhawkins.com. They're nicer on Instagram, just so you know. So thanks again for coming on the podcast, William.
It's all right. Maybe I'll hang out on Instagram more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Chrissy.
Thank you again for listening to the Why Not podcast. It really means a lot that you are listening in, and I would love if you could please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or subscribe on Spotify. And always, I'd love to hear feedback personally, so if you do want to leave me a message and let me know how you found the podcast, please do.